We are back with the very first episode of season 3 of Conversations Live. Adilla Diouman Mossafir, welcome and thank you for making us the honors.
Hi, Kabir. Thank you. Actually, it's for me to thank you. I'm really honored to be here to kickstart your season 3.
Adilla, you are an NLP certified master practitioner. You are in the people industry for people. And today I want us to have a conversation about the talent problem in Mauritius. And right at the outset, I want to make it clear that this is not going to be an HR discussion, right? But rather a national conversation about the future of Mauritius, right? Now, at a time when Mauritius speaks about growth, AI, investments, a regional hub, yet across all sectors, the same issue crops up. We cannot find people, right? And we've got to ask ourselves, does Mauritius have the human capital to be able to sustain those ambitions? And therefore, the first question to you is, do we have a real talent shortage? Or is there a deeper structural issue?
Thank you for framing the question the way you do. When we look at statistics for last year, for example, you will see that the unemployment rate stands at around 5.6%, 6%, right? But there is, it looks really relatively low, you would agree. But at the deeper level, when you analyze what's going on, you understand that there is actually a huge skills shortage. The skills shortage is widening with time. We have jobs, we have people on the other side. Do these match? That's the whole paradox. We have a lot of unemployed people looking for work, but then we also have work looking for people. So the talent problem is real, it's widening. It has been predicted internationally as well. Mauritius is not an exception. When you look at the Corn Ferry report of 2018, I'm not even talking of last year, we're talking of 2018, they predicted that by the year 2030, there will be a gap, a shortage of labor of approximately 85 million in the world. And let me tell you, Kabir, that Mauritius is a microcosm of it.
You talked about 2030. I want to stay there because I really want us to, investigate the talent problem from a national competitiveness perspective, right? I think what happens to us in 5 to 10 years' time if we don't have a clear perspective of this issue?
Okay, let's start with the macroeconomic side of things. 2030 is a long shot, especially when you look at the speed of evolution right now.
Absolutely.
From a macroeconomic perspective, foreign direct investment is intrinsically linked today to our capacity to provide labor force, adequate labor force. What is happening today is that being in the HR world, I can tell you that when investors are planning to set up their company, they will ask you nowadays, okay, I understand the tax regime is XYZ, I understand the benefits of this, but what is important to me is that can you supply 100 qualified accountants to run my BPO business? Can you provide suitably educated and trained individuals? And this is where actually is the pain point. We do not have capacity right now. So foreign direct investment is going to take a hit if we do not resolve the talent issue. We should also be more open and flexible to importing talent. I firmly believe that we are right now at a turning point, and that for a few years already, where we need to open our boundaries, our territory to international labor. Mauritians aspire to different career ambitions that our grandparents would have, that we actually have in our generation of people. Our young Mauritians, our mid-level Mauritians are leaving for different reasons, reasons linked to their own growth and development. Let's face it, we're a tiny island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. With the advent of the internet and, accessibility of information, we know what's out there, what the opportunities are, and their different aspirations. But who fills the gap? There
Exactly.
needs to be foreign input to fill in the gap if we want to continue growth. Being on the ground, I also speak to a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, SMEs, large organizations. Today, the one limiting factor is people. I've heard it by and by again, Kabir, that we have unprecedented growth in our organization. There's a lot of clients, there's a lot of potential for Mauritian organizations, but the limiting factor is there's not enough people to work. Companies are recruiting, evolving their recruitment methods as well, developing retention, engagement methods, but unfortunately, it's not there. The talent is not there.
We obviously have a stable population. We have graduates year on year. Where are they going? Where are those people?
So we have graduates, and I think you've said it very well. We have graduates, and then we have seniors. The ones who are actually going are the mid-level employees, mid-career employees. The young graduates, when you look at history, in the 1980s, the government in power then introduced an incentive to raise literacy level and educational levels on the island, where they said, we will provide free tertiary education. There needs to be one graduate per household. I don't know if you remember those days, Kabir. So today we are actually getting the harvest of this initiative. In every household, there's maybe not just one graduate. There's multiple. So we have this big pool of young graduates looking for jobs. Today, you want a fresh graduate to join your workplace. It's not difficult. Mid-level, as soon as they start getting 3-5 years experience, they become marketable to the world labor market. We would be wearing blinkers if we feel that the labor market is just confined to our shores. Our Mauritian talent, they do very well internationally, and they set the example for the young graduates to follow.
And when you say international, and you earlier also mentioned, if I can put it as brain drain, right?
Yes.
Do you think we're losing talent, or do you think we're failing to absorb the local talent?
We are losing talent. Whether we're failing to absorb, it's a deeper conversation. We are losing talent. Let me just start off with this. When you look at stats again, the Worldometer report, I think it was of 2023-2024, said that there was a decrease in our population of 2,621, if my mind is working well, which resulted from a decrease in birth rates versus death rates. The net population decreased, but then net migration also was negative, which meant that there were more people leaving the country than people actually coming into the country. Looking at stats itself, it speaks volumes. But also, when being in the recruitment field, when you look at the profiles of people who are leaving the country, you would immediately see that these are people who actually have tried the local market and now can see that there's maybe not a clear succession plan for them or career plan in the organization where they will grow, and they see better opportunities out there.
What we see, in fact, is a lot of them will leave for tertiary education and they don't come back. And the ones that go for tertiary education here in Mauritius will probably take a couple of years to get their industry experience, with the ultimate aim of going. Is this a mindset issue?
I'll reply this question, but first I'll ask you, would you blame them if they wanted to leave the island? If you put yourself in their shoes, these younger generation of workers, employees, they want to go places both physically, explore the world, but they also have ambition to bring about a better means of life. You have to understand.
I think A, the grass is not greener anywhere, and B, that there's a very distinct difference between career, creating your own opportunities in terms of growth and work, and having a good life in terms of
Spot
where
on.
you will be.
We align here, but allow me to tell you, Kabir, that actually the younger generation
Don't know that.
we're talking about, they don't know it, but for them, work is not their identity. Their career is not their identity. For me, you, our parents, our grandparents, everything revolved around work. It made us who we are in society, in the world. For the younger generation, what matters to them is that work needs to bring a means to their end. They need to be able to, through the job they choose, have a life that is with purpose, that their values actually are reciprocated in the world of work. Their identity is by how rich their life actually is. When you look at the confines of Mauritius, when you look at the opportunities that prevail for these younger generations, and here I'll pause to say, we shouldn't look at them as a problem situation or problem children. These are our future leaders of tomorrow. In 2030, they're the ones emerging from school and who will take over from us. They view things differently, and we have to adapt to them. They do not relate well to nepotism. They do not relate well to a lack of prospects at certain levels where they see it as a glass ceiling. It's not accessible to me because I am not of a certain category of people, for example. They will not relate well to that, and they will not relate to politics the way that, without taking any sort of political standing here, but the way politics tend to be happening these days internationally and locally, I don't think it's quite appealing to them. Now, think of cost of living in Mauritius. They would graduate and earn a minimum wage of 25,000. These youngsters, they want instant reward for whatever they do. They
Absolutely.
have grown up, Kabir, our children have grown up with smartphones in their hand. They have grown
They
up.
know what's out there.
They know what's out there. The information is out there, but also, like I like to call them, please don't tag me for saying this, but they are the generation of press button people. Everything happens at the press of a button. Before, when we were kids, I don't know if it was your case, but I would write an airmail to my auntie who would live in the south of Mauritius, explaining and telling her about my holidays.
Yeah.
So I needed first to buy the airmail from the tabaji, from the little shop in the corner, write the airmail, find a stamp, buy a stamp, go to the post office, post it. That would take 2 or 3 days in itself. It gets to her in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'll wait patiently for auntie to get the mail. There's no telephone back then.
Yeah.
She will write back to me, and in a month I'll get my reply.
Every day you keep asking the postman, do you have something for me?
Anything for me, exactly. So we learned it the hard way, but the patient way as well. We learned to grow with patience. We knew that our time would come. But our youngsters today, you know, when I'm lecturing in university classes or talking in workshops, and I ask the youngsters, well, what do you want to do as a career? Well, I'm not sure what I want to do, but for sure the job should be able to give me a laptop, and I should be able to afford a car within the first year. And I also need time to spend my personal time to socialize and do what I like to do.
Work from home.
All of that. I mean, this is the trend right now. And, you know, research again has shown that, look at the future of work, the job skills report of the World Economic Forum of 2025. It says that flexibility is the way, 4 days a week is the way, because work-life integration is becoming a thing now. If it wasn't for our generation of people, the younger generation wanted. So the younger generation is not limited by physical boundaries, geographical boundaries.
And this brings us to, we've discussed the generational shift issues where, we've discussed how older generations value stability. They and progression, whereas our new generation values flexibility. Purpose is very important to them. Speed and balance. See, the workforce has changed, but expectations may not have. And the question is, do you think companies are still operating with outdated expectations?
That's profound. Outdated expectations. Yes and no. You have all types of organizations. You have the SMEs, you have the large organizations, you have forward-looking organizations and static organizations. So there is a combination of that. There is a combination of expectations linked to the objectives of the company. A private enterprise is there to make money. Also in an ESG compliant way, yes, but let's not forget that the fundamentals is that they're here to get the numbers right. They're here to make profits, otherwise it doesn't make sense for them to exist.
The reason I ask you this is because the speed at which technology has evolved in the last, let's not go far, 2 years, with AI coming into play and all the rest, social media exploding, mobile phone penetration absolutely exploding. That, to me, has been the result of what we see today. But work, corporate institutions, regulations, processes have remained the same. So I go back to my first question. Are we facing a real talent issue, or is this a deeper structural problem?
I hear what you say completely. Organizations are struggling as they are right now to stay afloat all of this. We talk of the world today being VUCA and BANI. VUCA meaning that the trends are such that everything is volatile. Everything is uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And then last year, somebody coined another term to describe the world, and Mauritius is not spared. It's the BANI world, where things are brittle. Nothing lasts forever. Today, what you take as a decision and stands really well in the organization will fail tomorrow. Brittle, people are anxious. Nothing is linear. N stands for non-linear in the term BANI. And I stands for incomprehensible. Look at what's happening today in the news. Just today itself. We don't understand. It's difficult to make sense of the world. Organizations are battling to stay afloat in the VUCA and BANI world as it stands. You're perfectly right to say that technology, AI revolution is real. And we as institutions in Mauritius and authorities and around the world, we're struggling to keep pace with this. Now, for one moment, since we're talking about the talent issue, let's consider the talent problem at the source. Educational systems are known to slack. It has been the case in the past decades, in the past 20, 30 years. But even more so now with the advent of AI.
Absolutely. And education and the world of work, if we are to talk about education is not translating into employability. Do you think we are producing degrees instead of capability?
If we look at the case of Mauritius, from a purely objective angle, we are right now, when we look at unemployment statistics, we are facing more than 30%, if I'm not mistaken, around 40% of our unemployed who do not even have a school certificate, O-level certificate. How do I interpret this? Is simply that our educational system is churning out industrial age workers for the digital era. Let me say that again. We are churning out our graduates from school in a way that was fit for the industrial age. But today we are in the digital era. We're in the AI era. How do we then fix that is a total mindset shift from our governance, policymakers, academia, and the private sector. It's not a one size fits all formula neither, but it requires a deep overhaul of our educational system, tackle it from the root. And now you'll tell me, well, this is a long-term solution.
Not even
But
a long term. I ask that question to many people that come on our show. And when it comes to education, people are very careful of what they say because they know that syllabus won't change. They will blame it on, well, we've got to really learn the basics. If you don't know the basics, you won't learn. And people fear change. People fear taking ownership and responsibility to change that educational system.
which is very valid, and we have to respect that. But we need to also respect that if we want to survive in this increasingly complex and competitive world, there are some brave decisions that need to be taken, non-politically driven. I'm a firm believer of that. There needs to be one brave soul who comes in and says, okay, stop. We stop everything. We analyze, we research, and we plan the way forward. This is how countries like, Spain, Iceland, Belgium have revolutionized the workplace. They've looked at their educational system. Singapore is a living example. Singapore has it considers its workforce as its only national resource. It invests in its people from day one, from primary school upwards. They really do
Half of the
everything.
population are foreign nationals coming into the country to work.
Exactly, because these people have become experts now, and even FDI comes to them because they have the talent pool. So they also invest in continuous learning. If you look at their Skills Future program, a little bit equivalent to HRDC, the Human Resource Development Council in Mauritius, but only that the employee has incentives for continuous learning to upgrade their skills. So looking at revamping institutions in Mauritius is equally important as our educational system, and inculcating this thing about continuous learning and fostering that in individuals. When you look at, like I said, those unemployed with only O-levels, not even O-levels, well, they need to have a platform and incentive programs to help them recycle and upskill themselves.
Should we be looking more into vocational training, specialized training,
skills-based training?
Skills-based training.
Absolutely. The academic system has to evolve. Universities have to inculcate employability skills more and more. Yes, I'm talking in very abstract manners, but take these ideas and put them into concrete action plans, and you'll see how adaptable you make your workforce. There was a time when you would go for interviews, we would do IQ tests, right? We've evolved now into psychometric testing, which also tests your EQ. But today, to help you navigate, EQ is not sufficient, Kabir. What we need is AQ being adaptability quotients, adaptability skills. And if we do not teach this right from day one in schools, primary, secondary, tertiary schools, then we're not preparing our workforce adequately. So when we see the deeper structure levels, it would take hours and hours to demystify the whole thing for the different aspects of our economy. But just looking at education, we can start from there, actually.
We still do not put emphasis on soft skills. How much is that costing the economy today?
Well, if you want the scientific reply, I've got it for you. Every vacant position, according to, cost of vacancy statistics that economists would give you, my background, my first degree is in economics, so I can't really not go down that road. But the cost of vacancies per head in an average position is 15,000 rupees a day, right? These are scientific calculations. That's the figure. But the cost of vacancies, of having vacant positions that are not being filled, is actually exponentially more than that. When you look at competitiveness and agility of organizations, on one hand, we're talking about fast evolution, which means that organizations and their people need to be agile. But when you don't have the people, then where's the agility?
Exactly.
How do you stay afloat on the market? Others, other countries like India, like Madagascar, like China will eat you up in no time.
So a couple of years ago, if we look at Mauritius, there was the advent of wage adjustments, right? With basic pay going up considerably higher to what it used to be. And when this happens, then obviously every single other bracket needs to go up. Now, if you look at it from a business perspective, am I getting for what I pay for? Therefore, the people that have climbed up, have they been upskilled? Who's responsible for those upskilling? And it creates a bit of a difficult situation to manage.
Yeah, I think.
What have you seen from that perspective?
I cannot thank you enough for this question, Kabir, because you actually are referring to a massive pain point from the other side of the table, from the entrepreneurship, the business owner's perspective. Indeed, wage adjustment has happened for reasons that maybe not have been productivity related. And this has only increased costs on the balance sheet. You know, when you look at financial statements of organizations, in Mauritius, the staff cost is actually the one that eats up the biggest portion of your cost, unless and until you have a really automated company, organization. So on one hand, wage adjustment happened because of increasing cost of living for lobbying reasons, political reasons, etc. Let's not say whether it should have happened or not. I believe that if cost of living is increasing, people need to have a decent life, so it's important. But in parallel, what did not happen, like you rightly said, productivity didn't happen because we failed to upskill our workers, our employees, to match the increase in salaries. You know, when you increase the baseline on one hand, it's normal that there'll be an organic increase in wages across the board.
Absolutely.
There was also the policy of graduates and diploma holders earning a certain level of income, which has happened. And overnight, you know, young graduates who used to work for 20K suddenly turn around and say, well, you have to pay me 25K. And then the HR and the director says, okay, and what do you bring to the table then? There's no answer. This is my right, but where's your responsibility?
Yeah.
Now, is the responsibility yours, or should there be a framework to a company deliver? So this is what has caused a lot of disgruntlement in the private sector, where we felt that there was a lack of consultation, there was a lack of support. There was mention of, you know, going to banks to get support and, you know, assistance. But from COVID, we learned that, you know, wage assistance programs actually hit you back in the face.
Absolutely.
And people became shy.
And if you were to push it to outside Mauritius, people outsourcing to Mauritius, everything that is related to tech, financial services, we all of a sudden became non-competitive.
100%.
And we're still having this issue today in terms of, well, you know, India has 1,000 times your workforce per institution,
at lower cost,
much cheaper.
Yep.
And they are better at tech and understanding AI and technology.
Yeah.
So how do we, going forward and going back to that national conversation, how do we go forward with a balance between what is expected from graduates, what is expected from people within industries already working, and having that mindset of upskilling with AI coming in and economies growing, so that talent becomes a clear pillar towards national competitiveness?
So on one hand, like I mentioned, there's a whole overhaul of our education system that's required. That's one thing. The second area is governance and policy needs to adhere to this agenda. There needs to be a national talent strategy. Kabir, I've been seeing this by and by again. We cannot just get swayed by international trends, by whatever's happening or whatever is fancy out there. There needs to be a comprehensive national talent strategy for, call it 2030 or 2035, not 2050. 2050, God knows what is going to happen by then. But in the medium and short term, a talent strategy that aligns empowering our local workforce, aligns, with bringing in foreign labor. Today, it's taking way too long for foreign labor to actually get their permits and become workable on the island. We need to have simple things like if a post hasn't been filled within 30 to 45 days, by a local, then there needs to be a fast track for work permits for this position. Of course, it requires a lot of planning, but once it's done, it will ease the pressure off. We need to look at our labor laws.
Absolutely.
It's full of very much required protection of the workforce, has taken over everything else. People now talk about their rights, but not their responsibility as an effect of the current labor laws.
Yeah.
It was needed back in the days. The EPZ came into force. We needed protection of our workforce, but we've evolved from there. It's actually now the reverse of the situation. We need protection of employers, if I can say it. This is the kind of mentality that we're facing. People do not want to engage in dialogue with their employers. They trust the Ministry of Labour more. And unfortunately, while the Ministry of Labour is doing a good job in trying to listen to them, they feel that everything is possible. Everything is within their right. So the whole mentality, if you want to shift, we're talking of mindset shifting here.
Yeah.
It starts from policymakers, and then it trickles down into institutions and then into the individual. So if at the top we are not sorted, then this thing about, aligning our talent strategy to the needs of the market will not happen.
But then there's also, when you talked about your example, I thought about, here we are talking about skills. We're talking about upskilling. But what about attitude? What's harder to fix, skill or attitude?
At the same time, what's more important? Is it skills or attitude? Yeah. And I will start off by saying that attitude is number one in terms of importance. Then comes skills.
Absolutely.
When we talk of skills now, you've got the technical skills and the soft skills, right? I always see this in my leadership training classes that I give. If somebody comes from a top-notch university, MBA or beyond, qualified, but has no manners, as in just saying good morning when they come to the office and come on time and do their work and have a positive attitude towards work, it beats everything.
Absolutely.
It's no use. I would rather recruit somebody with no qualifications but shows positive can-do attitude. This person will be trainable because their mindset is right. They're not above everyone else.
Amen to that.
So that is where we are heading. If people want to succeed on the labor market today, it's attitude and behavior that's important. Your qualifications, like I always say to people, it will get you to the interview door. Yes, adverts will say minimum degree required, master's required, 5 years of experience, 2 years of experience. That will get you to the interview door. But what wins you the job, Kabir, is the attitude and personality you display at interview and in the first few months of your job. There's no way, no different way around this.
And then there's this other element of ownership, which seems to be extremely scarce these days. Back in my days when I started off in my first jobs, and I think I've kept this throughout the different jobs I've done, you go into a new job and straight away you tell yourself, this is my place, this is where I am, this is where I work, it's almost my home, and I know I've been told to do this and this, but I'll do more. I'll always do more. I'll always come the next day to do more than I did yesterday, without any agenda, without thinking if I do this, I will go and ask. But then automatically you grow because you are learning more things. You're growing within the office. Therefore, you're growing within the industry. You get noticed. And whether you like it or not, you will progress. Does it still work that way these days?
Ownership is the mantra for success. but does it still work these days? We can't generalize and say no, though I see it less and less in the workplace. I see it more with the more senior employees. When I say senior, it's also by age, not just by seniority in the organizational structure, but those who've crossed the 40s, they've got it. They know what they want. They've got a family to feed probably. They know what their purpose in life is and what their goal is. But those entering the market, well, there's a big job to be done. I wouldn't blame them entirely again, Kabir. Very often we blame them for their attitude, we blame them for their lack of enthusiasm, etc. But if we do not try and get into their shoes and understand their world, we will not be able to fix it. And it's not about fixing as if, they've got an ailment. It's about meeting them halfway. Let's not forget that this younger generation is our future. I keep on saying it by and by again. They're the ones who are going to take over from us. And we cannot just sit there and say, the new generation, they're this way. We used to be this way. Going back to history, it's when you understand history that you can sort of draw a parallel with what's going on now. Our grandparents came from the 1945, 1950s. They were who we call the baby boomers. They were born just straight after World War II. Economies were down, there was recession everywhere. It was important for them to find a job and build their identity, but also build their home. They took their work as being really sacred, right? Then came our parents who learnt from them, hands-on approach, cascaded down to them. They grew up with the same ethics and did as their grandparents did. They did not have the comfort in most cases that we had when we grew up. Whatever they didn't get, we started getting when we grew up. But there was still an element of not everything is easy and accessible. So when now we've become parents, whatever we didn't get, we put things on a golden tray for our kids. We want them to have the best of experiences. There was a time when I always wanted a Barbie doll as a young kid, and my parents kept on giving me other dolls than Barbie dolls because
that's not Barbie.
And then that's not Barbie, but the Barbie was way more expensive back in the days. So I have a daughter, she's 22 now, but I flooded her room with dolls of all sorts and Barbie dolls par excellence. So we gave them everything on a golden tray.
Yeah.
They won't make their beds, some of them even, and there's the saying that if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. So they don't even make their beds. There's maids for them. There's people doing things for them. And I don't know if you understand a Hindi term, but my husband used this recently and it made me smile when he said, well, we were talking about the staffing problem in the new generation. He said, at home, daughters and sons as well, or what we call in Hindi, Papa ki pari, the princesses and fairies of the house. This is how we treat them. They've got their technology with them, they know more than you technology-wise, but we inherit them at the workplace.
Yeah.
These Papa ki pari, these fairies at home and princesses
they become busky fairies.
And now you need to instruct them.
Yeah.
And you need to tell them, no, this is not allowed. This is what's allowed. Okay, we can give you a voice, but you can only talk and voice out your opinion in this platform. These kids, they want to be in the boardroom.
Yeah.
They want to be part of decision making. They want to be felt as if they're heard, that they're valued. They will walk away if you just give them data inputting, if you just give them a piece of the work without explaining the big picture.
Absolutely.
So again, I tell you, well, can we blame them for not taking ownership when we are not trusting them enough to take ownership? When we say, no, you're a junior, you need to climb the ladder the normal way. These kids are very entrepreneurial. Just test it. Take a newbie, give them their space to evolve, and give them a project to work on and tell them, you just deal with it. You'd be surprised by the outcome. But we're scared because we learned
Our
the
way.
traditional way, and we want to impose that on them, we'll lose them.
Then comes leadership. Talent problems are often leadership problems. How much of the talent issue is actually a leadership issue?
I love your questions and the flow of this discussion, Kabir, because in Mauritius, and here again, I'm not generalizing, but we tend to have bosses than leaders. There's a fine line between being a manager and a leader. And this new generation needs leaders who are coaches and who are mentors.
Yeah.
In institutions and organizations where a senior has mentored a junior, the results have been phenomenal. Yes, it's good to be a leader. It brings the status. It brings a lot of, perks in terms of psychological image and all of that. But the role of the leader is deeper than managing an organization. It's empowering. It's walking with and serving your team.
Yeah.
We don't talk about militarian leadership anymore. That's completely gone. Today we talk about servant leadership, not even transformational leadership. A leader is expected to coach and transform people. But above everything, our real responsibility is to be at the service of our organization.
And I think this is where maybe your NLP background will help us in this conversation with understanding, well, really the responsibilities of leaders and how leaders have that as duty to evolve and engage with their people, to make them understand holistically, support them to walk that path of that journey of whether it's the company or the industry.
Leadership starts from the self. You need to be able, if you want to aspire to become a leader, and here I'm using NLP, you need to be able to lead yourself. I'm not talking here about your technical leadership skills, but you need to understand who you are, what triggers you, what are your tendencies, what are the areas where you have gaps in skills yourself. Be okay with it. We're not perfect. We can aspire to perfection, but leaders are not perfect. We work on being 1%, the Kaizen model, where we work on being 1% better every single day. But we need to be okay with our shortfalls and our super skills. Acceptance of the self and working towards improvement, knowing our emotions, knowing our intellect, connecting with the inner self and the purpose is important if you want to be an impactful leader. It starts from there. And actually, my leadership courses are always focused on the self. It's not about, communication skills, motivational skills, etc. That you can learn in books, you can read on, you can listen in the car on podcasts and YouTube. But the real challenge is knowing yourself. And then you'll have much more respect and that willingness to empower others. And with that as well, I think with self-mastery, I would like to add something around unconditional love. I don't know if you can see the relationship here. I'm not talking about romanticizing here, but acceptance means that I unconditionally love you for who you are. As my team member, as somebody who cleans my office, as the shopkeeper who serves me my coffee every day, I look at you from a positive angle.
Yeah.
And I'm here, just a little grain of sand, doing my part in the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Who am I to judge you? There's a saying, one of my mentors usually says this to me. I can't remember who said it, but who am I to judge the other person? At the end of the day, we are all sinners. I think it was Saint-Exupéry who said this.
You saying this is very, very interesting. It's got me thinking now. As much as we're talking about the talent problem, and we're aligning this issue with almost an in and out equation, But this conversation talks about the equation,
Yep.
meaning, let me explain. See, we have staff turnovers every day in every big corps, right? They move.
Yep.
People
It's
are
the norm.
always, and people are moving even and even more. What we don't talk about is culture. And culture is created by leadership, not HR. People stay or leave based on their environment. And leadership defines expectation, the energy, the standards. You cannot attract high quality talent in a low quality culture. And that in itself has a bigger influence on productivity, national competitiveness, than the actual talent problem as we're currently seeing it in terms of the people coming in.
You speak from a space of knowing, Kabir, because after COVID, I was one of those who thought that people would stick around in jobs and attrition rate would go down because people realized that parameters can change overnight and suddenly we can all lose our jobs. A lot of people did lose their jobs anyway, but through the great resignation and all of that. But actually, the reverse happened. COVID taught us to value ourselves, our peace of mind, and those we love more than the job. The job has become a means to an end.
Yeah.
It doesn't end with the job. Life doesn't end with the job. So today, where we are not respected, we are not valued, and we feel that environments are not bringing peace of mind to me, I walk away. This trend has been accentuated with the younger generation as well and is here to stay. One of the founders of LinkedIn actually came up with the 2-year theory recently, where they said if people can stay in your organization for 2 years, that's fine. This is what you should expect. 2 to 3 years, not more. There's evolution. We need people to keep moving around for fresh ideas to come in. But people also want to ensure that they're having the life that they deserve. And here I'm not talking about professional life. They're talking about the social life and living at a certain standard of living.
Then there's the illusion of being busy versus real output, right? Many organizations are active, but not necessarily productive. Now, productivity, as we know, drives economic growth, not headcount. So the question really is, are we confusing busy with being effective?
Being productive actually means that you get the job done no matter what. It's working smart. It's working using the tools that you have at hand. Today, AI is expediting work. The speed at which you can churn out letters, documents, reports is unprecedented. So embracing the smart way of working is more important than sort of, being busy running around and not using the appropriate tools. There is that general connotation that people are, really busy. It's like, where does the time go at the end of the day? What have I been up to when I look at, my task list? I haven't achieved anything. It ties in with the VUCA world as well, how things are non-linear and complex. So moving towards this state of being productive is where we should actually be moving. It is really cutting out what's not necessary. It's looking at what doesn't serve the purpose. Is me talking to you here, spending 1.5 hours in the day, worth it for my own career, my own growth, my job, my enterprise, or is it just a good some sort of feel good factor that I'm involved in just because it's the norm, it's what people do, So productivity also comes with that concept of, and here I'm talking of a bit a macroeconomic perspective, a national strategy perspective, with labor laws and countries across the world are now embracing and testing what it means to have people being rewarded based on productivity versus on hours of work.
Yeah.
So what I mean by this is, for example, the 4-day week. Iceland has tested it, Belgium has tested it, Spain has tested it, if I'm not mistaken, and the results have been amazing. There is an indirect correlation between reducing the hours of work and productivity. It didn't mean that with a 4-day week, productivity reduced as well. On the contrary, people were more productive, according to research, because now they're in control of their time and they cut the chase and go to the basics, get it done. I'm here for 4 days and then I'm out.
Earlier you talked about education and you said we've got to relook this. And now you saying this makes me realize something. Isn't the key to everything the HR people?
Please don't add more on their back.
But hear me out.
They're the dumping ground.
The HR crowd has been trained and taught to deal with people in a certain way, in a certain systematic process. And the minute you go out of it, all the alarm bells starts ringing. It's a bit like the accountants. You've got to follow this, else, and here we are in an age of AI, in an age of wanting to adapt to changes, but the system is not allowing us to. If to take on from what you've just said, as long as you get the work done, then if my work is done, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So HR comes and says, well, no, you have to stay up to 4.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't I go home? Why can't I take my kids out? And then you ring me if you need me. And if you need me, I'll stop by, get into a coffee, open my laptop, and I'll get the job done. It's really pushing the limits.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the current system.
I hear you.
Does that deep-rooted system need to change?
I hear you totally. We have HR people and HR people. Yeah, you have the avant-garde ones, and then we have the late adapters. It is known actually that HR, we tend to be late adapters or adopters of trends, right? But at the same time, leadership has a responsibility towards gearing the HR towards where they want to go and where they want to head. At the end of the day, the HR reports to the board, reports to the CEO, reports to the managing director. And they have the responsibility to keep themselves at pace with international trends, educate themselves, lifelong learning style, not just you earn a degree in HR in 1980 and this is the way we've done it, so we are going to continue doing it.
But when we are saying the system is flawed, that system is flawed too, because the CEO is not a professional of HR. The board is not a professional HR. So when we talk about leaders are leaders in their field. And earlier we've talked about how leaders need to have this internal learning to accept their gaps, to go out and learn and collaborate with each other, right? Mm-hmm. So if we were in a position to talk to each other and I listen to you as a leader of people and you tell me what the people would want, I adapt to that. I don't let the board dictate me and then I dictate you and then I've given you a flawed system to work in.
It's a partnership. Yeah, it's a partnership where each complements each other. HR has the techniques, but leadership knows where we're heading. What is the end result for my people that I want? Do I want them to be working from the shore? I'm okay with that with their laptop or not. HR needs to also put the parameters in place. So I cannot say it's leaders or HR. We shouldn't actually go through that kind of a conversation without saying that it's a collaboration, it's a partnership. It's also a partnership with your government policies. We cannot implement in an organization today a 4-day week if the law doesn't have provision for it and gives you the the parameters under which you're going to navigate. Very often, the HR is like the middle of the sandwich on both sides. There's the leadership, there's leadership, and there's compliance. We cannot dissociate HR with compliance. Labor laws will guide. Labor laws are like our sacred book, our Bibles. They will tell us what we can do and not do. So if we are to move towards that productivity way of thinking, which we have to, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas won't take this thing about I have to be in a job from 9 to 4 or 9 to 5. They need the flexibility. It's coming. I'm not saying that we are not embracing it. Look at the PRB report of 2026. It has mentioned flexi time for government officials. There's an element of that. Private sector has started it already after COVID, but there needs to be a structured strategy around it. Let's not put it on the back of HR only, though I do hear you that mindset of HR has to evolve. And here again, sorry, but it goes back to the education we receive.
Again.
Kabir, I will tell you the number of HR officers I interview every month to recruit people for my team. But when I ask them the simple basics of HR, they don't have the answer. They're coming up from local universities. I ask them, well, what is the name of our current labor law? They don't know. And here we're talking of fresh graduates from university. It's not being taught, not pointing fingers at anyone, but there's a systemic change that needs to be brought about. And like I kept saying throughout this interview, we shouldn't just mend things on the surface. It's not palliative treatment. It's a complete relooking and revamping.
And then now there's AI. And for the last couple of years, all we hear is AI is going to take my job, AI is going to kick me out, AI is here to replace me. There's been enough conversations about that. I don't want us to go into that. But what I would want us to discuss is taking on from where we've reached. AI gives us that possibility to bridge the gap between the new generation and how companies are run.
Yeah.
Because people can work from wherever they are. Gen Zs could be working on their phones because the systems and the AI in place can create platforms that allows them to feel and work in the way they see things, because they're always on their phones, they're on apps, they're always,
Yep.
We need to really think outside the box of, do I have to get dressed and come to work and sit at a desk and open my laptop and access this corporate system when I could be doing this on my mobile phone in my bed?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, let's not generalize. There are front-facing jobs that will
Absolutely.
still need to be there.
But you see what
You're totally right on this. I was talking to an employee yesterday who was wanting 2 months of remote work this year. And one thing she told me, she said, well, in India, it's very common. There's a lot of people who do remote jobs. McKinsey reports actually demonstrated that after COVID, 80% of the workforce didn't want to come back to the office. And she said, well, next to my mother-in-law's house, there's this cafe where there's computers, there's pods over 6 floors, and you go in, you work the whole day, and then you come back home, and you don't need to actually commute to work. It's just right next to my home. So I can easily work remotely for you, Adilla. It's not a problem. And this is an insurance risk management and insurance company employee here who does stats and analytics, etc. So embracing that open mindset is absolutely fundamental. AI is pushing us towards that. If we do not embrace AI tools in our organizations, and allow me to say in Mauritius, there's still organizations that are taboo when it comes to AI, when they still tell your staff, use your brain, you don't need a machine to tell you. But look at it, look at the reverse of the coin. AI can assist your employees. Embracing technology, remote work and all of that will lower your costs because you do not need a physical space or as big a physical space as before. It's time for us, and that's why I said leadership starts with self-mastery, understanding what's going on within you. What are your fears? What are your triggers? And why are you not embracing it? It can only substantiate. Speaking of foreign direct investment again, this is what companies will look for when they come to Mauritius, when they are coming to Mauritius? Do you offer that flexibility, that adaptability to international technological trends? Our talent pool is becoming our infrastructure, if I can use these terms. How good is our infrastructure, is how good our talent pool is going to be agile, and that we facilitate that agility as a country.
And Adilla, with AI comes upskilling. I mean, obviously, we've talked about how pay is increasing and there is this requirement to upskill, but the technology is forcing us to upskill.
Yep. If we want to remain valid, upskilling becomes a personal agenda for ourselves than an organizational agenda. Organizations have a responsibility, don't get me wrong, to ensure that they're creating the platform for people to upskill themselves. Forget about just AI, but in terms of, coping with world trends and the speed of advancement in the world, we need to create the platforms and the opportunities for people. But I would like to see that the first step is the self. You need to realize today that if you consider yourself as a 1-degree person and I'm done with studies, then you'll quickly become irrelevant. If you want to stay ahead of the game and you want to have a successful career, no matter what it is, even if you want to be, for argument's sake, somebody who is evolving in the profession of being a barman, or somebody who wants to become a top-notch entrepreneur, bringing in new revolutionary products, it's the same lifelong learning. You have to embrace that. You have to keep yourself up to date. Before we used to say, well, IT is a very lucrative business. It's a very lucrative job because, it's the future. But then people need to keep learning in IT because programs get obsolete and replaced within weeks and months. Today, it's not just the IT people. It's across the board. So keeping yourself up to date is important. It's organizational, it's self-driven, but it's also driven by authorities. And here, we touched upon it earlier, institutions like MQA, Mauritius Qualifications Authority, Human Resource Development Council, the Ministry of Labour, Ministry of Technology, have to come together really to build a framework around lifelong learning. We haven't yet built it. It's really shy what has been put in place. I mean, HRDC today has become a place where you get refunds only for organizational training. But what about me as an individual? I want to be trained. I've contributed to social contributions for so many years. And I want some support in upskilling myself. Where do I go? Who can help me apart from the banks for educational loans? So we need to revamp and reconsider all of this in line with international trends. This is the only way that Singapore has done it and has succeeded with it through their Skills Future framework, and we've got to learn from that. We shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, Kabir. We look at best practices from around the world and see what works for us and implement that. Easier said than done, but it requires the willingness to start.
Adilla, we cannot not talk about women when we talk about the talent issue. The women workforce is very considerable today, is growing on a rapid scale. What is your perspective when it comes to women's contribution to the overall national productivity of Mauritius?
There are challenges in terms of, we talk about the glass ceiling, the glass cliff nowadays, when, it's very easy for women to enter jobs at entry level. Climbing the ladder becomes more challenging, and reaching the top executive positions is even more a stretch for them, for various reasons, historically as well, but socially, women are the carers of the home affairs, of the family, of the caterers for the food. We are still the waiters, the cooks, the cleaners, to a certain extent, let's say the gardeners, and the go-to person for everything. We still face this dilemma of being part-timers in whatever we do. Women have the pressure of being career oriented now. Even the dads, the mums want their ladies, the young girls to have a career, rightly so. But at the same time, to be the model for their homes,
To be
women
motherly.
to be motherly, to be the ones who are taking care of everything at home. You're a woman. You need to care for your family. You need to be the one cooking. It is changing again with the
It's
alpha
not wrong.
generations. It's not wrong, but what is perhaps to be fixed is that we have focused, and in Mauritius it's very vivid, we have focused on empowering our women to an extent that maybe we've moved from patriarchal society to a matriarchal society where now it's all about the women, empowering them and giving them everything they need. But we forgot that they still need to evolve in a man's world. And the man hasn't been prepared to face the empowered woman of today. When you look at the rate of conflict, divorce, and all sorts of social problems that are happening at domestic level, it's because of that. When deep inside, it's because of that lack of preparation.
Yeah.
The women have been emancipated, but they do not know how to cope with their patriarchal family,
Yeah.
husband, father. And yet they're called upon to be so many things at the same time. They know their purpose, they know what they're supposed to be doing, and they will not take, excuse my French, they will not take crap because they have a career now. They've been equipped, they've been empowered. So their contribution is real, but there's still a long way to go in terms of acceptance. It's good to see that, women in Mauritius have equal opportunities. It's a nice thing to see. But when you look at matters on the ground, when you look at the struggle of women in boardrooms,
Yeah.
it's real
Yeah.
to get their voice heard. To be a successful board member as a woman today, you need to know your stuff inside out, and you need to have a powerful persona. You need to have a strong voice. You need to have a strong presence. Without that, you're not respected. Even then, at times, you're not respected. So women get discouraged. Women get discouraged to apply for promotions.
But what happened to the minimum percentage of women on board? This was announced a few years back.
Does it suffice to say that we've got quotas for women on boards? What do we do with the women? They're not a vase on the table. They're not a flower on the table. They need to be able to voice out, to bring the change. I'm not generalizing, but when you have one person on the board and then the rest are one woman on the board and the rest are males, if you're not strong enough and equipped enough, you would shy away into a corner and just be a notes taker.
Yeah.
So if we are to really leverage on the contribution of women, it's creating that safe space for everyone.
But
And
what do
at
we
the same
do?
time-
What do we do in this conversation of talent problem in Mauritius? How do we accelerate the participation of women across industries, across boards?
Interesting question. There was the Back to Work program that was introduced, I think, by Mr. Roland Dubois back maybe some 10, 15 years ago. The Back to Work program was an incentive to encourage women after having, reared or grown their children up to a certain independent age to come back and through government incentives be employed on the job market, build their experience and then fly on their own. It worked well, but there was a reluctance for women to embark into these programs. They were struggling to find jobs, but then they didn't want government incentives. We need to facilitate women to be able to navigate through their different roles. I was telling you earlier that we are part-timers in everything we do because when we're at work, we're thinking of home. When we're at home, we bring our files at home and we want to work, but we can't because we need to do so many things. Facilitating women actually comes from the house. It is creating an ecosystem, a support system for them to be able to thrive. It is saying to our sons, it's okay for you to cook food one night. It's okay for you to do the dishes. It's okay for you to clean the house because one day you're going to have a working partner.
It's almost like saying behind every successful woman,
There should be a man. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
A man that understands, a man that respects, a man that encourages.
creates that space for the woman to grow. We are partners at the end of the day. We are not competitors. We are there to improve the workplace. And with the inclusion of women, economic growth internationally will actually skyrocket. And that's across the world.
Then if we add to that, we add the element of vision, aspiring, almost dreaming. And what I mean by this is from a grassroots level, I look at my boss and I see that person as being always very creative, innovative, pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries, always wanting to do something else, always trying to use the same tools but to create a different result. It inspires me to want to stay here because I get the feeling that I will learn from that person. Likewise, that boss will require a different boss to feel inspired.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, we've talked about self-mastery, being in the zone and understanding oneself. But there comes a point where, there's that saying of you're only as good as the people you're surrounded with.
Yep.
So that leader will require that other person that he looks up and he goes, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to learn something here. This is the direction I'll take. And whether you like it or not, it goes up to the head of state. And the head of state looks up to the head of states of the region. And the head of states of the region look at the continents. And that's how we grow.
Yep. It's a chain.
Now, when we look at how the world is today from an international perspective, and then we look at the grassroots of what we're going through today, what can you tell me about that disconnect?
If you look at it from the reverse angle now, what's happening internationally and how it replicates in the country and then in organizations, the world is a mess right now. The world is an absolute mess when you look at all the, the war, the price hikes, oil shortage. This morning I heard diesel prices are going to skyrocket in Mauritius and the ripple effects around it. And you look at our leaders in organizations, forget about our country leaders, but in organizations themselves, they're navigating this mess. They have to make a sense of this mess so that they can stay afloat and remain competitive. Now, this leader is already struggling, may have or may not have a team around them to support their decision making, to crunch their numbers for them. And then they have that responsibility of looking after their team members, empowering them and making sure that, they see the pathway, they're motivated, engaged, etc. Large organizations cope better. Small to medium organizations are struggling. I can tell you this. They're already on survival mode. Now, let's say I'm on survival mode. I'm sort of day and night thinking of how to keep my organization valid in the next year. And how do I not make people face job losses? What takes precedence here for me?
Absolutely.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Of course, I need to look at survival of my enterprise. So who suffers?
Yeah.
The one below. But then do we say it's right or wrong? It's really ambiguous right now. So people need to understand across organizations and across levels that we are all learning to stay afloat in unprecedented times, and add AI into the conversation now, which comes and sort of magnifies the whole situation. So at all levels, there's a level of uncertainty. We need to be okay with that. I'm not saying we need to normalize that, but we need to be okay, in a way, surrender to what's not under our control. And later on, when it makes sense, then try to navigate and be empathetic, be kind. We're all leading a battle that is maybe not shown on our face.
And the reason I talk about this is so that we can link back to our regional collaboration and talent exchange. Look, at the end of the day, I don't think Mauritius can solve this alone, and nor can any other country. So, should we, Mauritius, actively build a regional talent ecosystem and attracting and integrating foreign talent effectively?
100%. We should aspire to become the Singapore of Africa. I really believe it. When you look at the Singaporean model, they built their human resources as their only natural resource. They really cared for their resources and brought in top-notch education and qualifications. What happened thereon was that today they're able to export their talent. They're able to go out in the world and teach, train, and equip other countries, and do that thing that we call knowledge sharing with other countries. A lot of top-notch institutions are also coming to set up in Singapore. Their talent has become their natural resource. Mauritius is swerving in that direction as well. If you look at our tourism sector, we are panting. If you look at the sugarcane industry, well, it's already outdated conversation. So where's the real natural resource? It's our people.
It's our people.
If we know how to invest in our people, and like I said earlier, really revamp our educational system and be brave about it, not take palliative action just to mend a few things here and there. And we really focus on building capacity through our human capital, then yes, we need to be able to collaborate. A lot of consultants is already going out into mainland Africa. We are well regarded in mainland Africa, but let me tell you, South Africa has beaten us already at it. So if we look at revamping our capacity internally, we should be the ones going out and not doing transfer of knowledge out there. We should be the ones that are the reference to mainland Africa.
I mean, we've got Madagascar, we've got the Seychelles, we've got the whole of Africa, we've got India. It just sounds to me that we're very reactive in our approach. It's when issues crops up and it becomes unbearable, then we pick up the phone and we go, let's bring X number of people from X. But having that deep structured approach to talent exchange, and initially I said Mauritius is talking about being a regional hub, but if we are unable to accept the people within our region into our country, welcome them, learn from them, learn their culture, have proper exchanges, whether it's life exchanges or business exchanges, how are we going to inspire to become the hub of the region?
It's a mindset shift. Mauritians have been reluctant to accept foreigners for years now, even if we have a talent shortage. We don't want the Bangladeshis around us in our neighborhood. We don't want the Malagasis or the Zimbabweans or the Kenyans around us. But if we keep on keeping our head in the sand like the ostrich, then the future is going to be bleaker and bleaker. There's no other way. I mean, look at Dubai 30 years ago. If they didn't become brave and open up their labor market, who would have been running the malls? Who would have been running the entertainment sector so that, the Emiratis can now enjoy a really upscaled standard of living? We're at the same transition, at the same crossroad. So for regional integration and being known as the talent hub, there's mindset shift, but there's the talent strategy that needs to be sorted. We have it within us, but it's the mindset and the willingness, la volonté, to actually go out there and consider Africa as part of Mauritius. We are part of the African continent. But I speak to people around me and no, we're not Africa. Excuse me. I mean, saying this to somebody who grew up in Zimbabwe, I can tell you in the 1980s, Zimbabwe was another world. it was one of the most developed countries in Africa. So, we cannot dissociate ourselves from mainland Africa and our neighboring islands. We have a lot to give. When we talk of FDI, there's a lot that can come from Africa as well, but we need that conducive macroeconomic environment. One, we need our entrepreneurs to develop the mindset that it's not just about going to Europe. It's not just about going to Canada or going elsewhere where the grass is greener. We could become the queens and kings of Africa. Please don't quote me there, but it is really possible if we put our minds to it.
Adilla, it's been amazing to have you. I think we've reached the end of our podcast, but before we end, we have some rapid fire questions for you.
Oh dear, okay.
Are you ready?
Okay. Depends on what the 5 questions are going to be on, but yeah, let's say I'm ready.
So here we go. First question. Talent shortage or system failure?
System failure.
Okay. AI will reduce jobs or increase the need for better talent?
Increase the need for better talent. We should not fear losing our jobs. We should fear losing our jobs to people who know AI.
Do we have a skills problem or is it an attitude problem?
Attitude problem.
Busy culture or productivity problem?
Busy culture.
Career mindset is gone or companies stop building careers?
Career mindset is gone.
Adilla, thank you for coming on Conversations Live. I hope you've enjoyed as much as I have.
Thoroughly. Thank you, actually. It was an honor to be on your podcast.
Thanks a lot.